Started before that.
That was the call to order. Number 2 is citizen comments. Citizen Skinner.
We're on a microphone.
I think you have good news.
No, you're not. You got plenty right there.
No, I'll pick one. No, I wanted to come and report, I think we had talked in an earlier meeting about the Eastern Flank Battlefield Commission meeting this morning, that they were going to try to give some direction and recommendations about what they would like to see done on Eastern Flank Battlefield. And this morning, thanks to Eric Gardner and Dave Parker, who put together a great presentation and had a lot of numbers and things, they were able to come up with a recommendation that would be to put in the loop road for a little over, right at $500,000 more. I think that
Then what, above the 369?
above the 369, so it would be right around 900,000. And that we accomplished that by eliminating some demolition, eliminating some places where we're going to tear up.
Can you take over and show that?
Sure.
Where we were going to.
We'll put up on.
Okay, so you can see
screen.
what
We
this
do
looks
have
like.
a little time reserved on the work session on Tuesday
Where we
on CIP for this purpose to kind of update the whole board on this discussion and the recommendation, because your priorities, if you remember, are due a week from
Right,
Friday.
and I thought
Already had this-
as you're making the selections, maybe this weekend, you needed to know this. They're only going to do two sections of the parking lot by the Fleming Center. There's actually 5 that go in there, but there will still be access and parking for buses in there too.
So what will you do for parking?
No, there's still parking there for as much as they have now up near the Carnton House.
The
It's
original
just not
plan,
as much.
the original plan was, pull up the bigger scale.
Okay, hold on. There's a recommendation coming that was made this morning to pursue a $900,000 project that is scaled back from anything we've seen,
Right.
correct?
Right.
For the full loop.
Okay,
And that's full cost, that includes the 369 already
Okay.
committed.
all right.
Is that as much detail as you want now?
Yeah, I mean, I
Okay.
assume that details and drawings and all that can be disseminated fairly quickly, right? I mean, I don't want to go into it at some length when we don't have, I mean, no one knew we would, but, I mean, that's great news. We can choose to do something.
Okay.
Thank you for the announcement.
Yeah, it was important to me for, as we look at our selections.
Sure.
If we're making decisions this weekend, you know,
Okay,
to
so
keep this in mind.
if that's going to be possible to do.
Yes.
Well, anything's
It's
possible.
always been possible. The question's always been whether you spend $1 million on a road out there or not to get to the interpretive center.
And let me add also that I've talked to Andrew, and he said that, Andrew Orr said that we could modify the TDOT grant to have the enhancements that were already included in the what we asked for last time. So instead of the city would build the road, we'd ask for the enhancements from the state, from TDOT. And we've also had some commitment from MTSU and perhaps offering their expertise and also some contributions to interpreted signs and things like that.
Okay.
Okay.
Number 2 is approve the minutes of the May 12, 2011 meeting.
So move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Number 3, consideration of the award of the construction contract for the Liberty Creek Water Quality Improvements Project to Civil Constructors, Inc. in the amount of $234,996.08.
Get your name. Do you want to do it?
Okay, I'll do it.
I'm floating on this.
This was a stormwater project that we had originally received a grant of about $130,000 originally. Across the board, EPA had cut back 4% roughly, and the grant came down to about $120,000. Well, I think at our last CIC meeting, we discussed the fact that we had just learned at that point that we may be losing the grant again. But the good news is we had estimated the cost of this construction plus some construction admin, which is the next item. All of that going to roughly cost about $350,000. And then if you subtract out the 120 grant, it was going to cost the city about $230,000. The bids came in for about $235,000, and so that was a really good bid. And then the next item, the $10,000 for construction admin, you put those two together, we ended up actually being over by about $15,000, even though we may not be getting the grant now. So this is a small construction project that gives a little bit of water quality, a little bit of water quantity relief on the Liberty Creek branch that goes into the river. This is, for those that don't know where this is exactly, it's off Daniels Drive, just south of Jameson Station. City had already owned a small lot over there, so these improvements, like I said, it'll provide a little bit of water quality and water quantity relief going into the river.
And we are still going to pursue the grant funding, and EPA has indicated that we can go ahead and award and not harm ourselves in our ability to potentially recapture this grant and apply it here. So we haven't given up on that, but we also have a very good bid that is very close to what we were going to put in locally anyway to get the project done, and we'll continue to pursue an essentially extension or reauthorization of the grant as we move forward with the project as well.
Yeah, once we found out that there's a freeze on the federal funds, we were talking, our consultant talked with EPA, and basically, as Eric said, it's not going to hurt us to proceed. They said go ahead and request an extension on it, so we've taken care of all that. We may get the money after the fact, we may not, we don't know, but like I said, it's a good, we got a good price, and nothing going forward will hurt our chances of still getting that money later.
I would move approval.
Second. Go ahead.
I guess the question is, why did we wait until the expiration of the grant money to get started on this?
Well, we didn't really wait till it expired. What happened was this project needs to be done in drier weather. So we were planning on doing this last summer. When the May flood hit, it kind of threw everything out of kilter. And by the time we were able to get plans completed and everything, it was going to be wet season again. So that pushed it to this time of year.
We had also been verbally told that we were going to be able to extend the grant period, and that changed recently as last month on this issue. So
Yeah.
This was a bit of a surprise for us that it changed this quickly, and so we're doing the best we can to respond to it. And again, are going to try to continue to pursue the reinstatement of the grant.
When was the grant awarded?
It's been at least a couple of years.
Couple of years?
I think it's 09.
Well, I mean, I'm delighted to see that the contract came in for much less money than we'd expected, but still, I would say that's the kind of thing where we were thinking getting these reports every month would have kept us from getting in this position.
There was a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The next item is consideration of the professional services agreement with CDM for construction administration for the Liberty Creek Water Quality Improvements Project in the not-to-exceed amount of $10,000.
This is same project as last item. This is services that we've requested from CDM who did the design. We really expect it not to really even get to the $10,000, but we want to have them on hand in case there's questions or anything that comes up during the construction. We plan on doing all the paperwork in-house. That was another way that we were able to get that original number of 350 down to what we're at now, 245. So we think we're going to do most of this in-house, but this is just kind of in case there's something that comes up that goes back on the original design. We've got them available to answer questions, and we as staff will be monitoring what they spend, how much time they have on the project.
One question, Mr. Chairman. How will we know that the quality has improved? What is the measuring stick?
Well, we do now with our new stormwater permit that we've got with the state, we'll have to do more monitoring. Now, we do not have measurements at this location prior to this construction taking place. So we won't have a real exact that this project improves by this amount. Just because we don't have anything to measure and to compare it to at this point. But what it does, you've got a lot of runoff coming from, I guess as far away, it goes all the way to McHatcher, I believe, right? Yeah, crosses McHatcher. So there's a lot of impervious area, a lot of roadway that goes through there. And when it hits the creek, it goes straight from a pipe into the creek now. What this will do, it'll go into a grassy area, which will help filter it out. So to give you a measurement, like I said, we don't have measurements beforehand, but just knowing that it's going to be treated, going to be filtered, it's a good best management practice.
It's changing the flow process.
Yeah, yes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Number 5, street project status reports.
Just point out that there is a memo concerning Hillsborough Road and is attached to your status.
Let's talk through that overall.
You want to do that one first, or is there any questions on the?
Well, is Nickel Mill Lane moving?
Yep.
It has been. One of the slowdowns, or one of the things that has been going on that we should really start to see the contractor actually forming the road and doing that type of work. They've had to do utility relocations for Academy and some of the other, I guess, probably Burger King or whatever that's over there. But the utilities have just been relocated. I think it was last week or maybe early this week. All the utilities are done, so they'll be out there getting the storm drainage in, finishing up the grading, and you'll see a lot of progress now.
Good.
So really, that does not need to go on our priority list?
Nickel Mill.
It's awarded and funded.
It's awarded and funded.
They've got dozers out there.
All right, what else on this number 5 can we scratch?
Well,
Columbia Avenue?
You've got a list that has everything on that you're being asked to
That
prioritize.
thing.
So things like Columbia Avenue or McHatcher Extension or Hillsborough Road
McEwen Phase
or
3.
McEwen Phase 3 or Nickel Mill are not on that priority list because they are committed projects. You've actually awarded contracts for the delivery of those
Why do
projects.
we keep seeing this on the list?
Because we're updating you on capital projects every month
these are not funding choices. These are things that are going on.
that we're doing work on. We want to let you know where we are each month on these capital projects.
What we've done, we've taken the projects that have some type of progress to them, whether it's still in design, right-of-way acquisition, construction, whatever. And we're giving an update on those. And until there's either a completion of a phase and then no more funding available. So like if we finish the design and construction's not funded, we'll finish the design, we'll tell you design's done, waiting for funding, and then we won't give you an update again. Construction, if it's under construction, we'll give progress report on it. Once it's complete, then you won't see it on this list anymore. We do, like I said, we do have Hillsborough as a separate item. We've also got McEwen, the Wilson Pike intersection as a separate memo in here also. So I guess if there's no other questions about the other projects, we can go into
Just one, maybe even not a question, but more of a comment. We've got South Carruthers on. South Carruthers probably needs to be broken down to where
In phases.
it's in phases, and you've got phase one, that's the two-lane phase that we've discussed, south past whatever project that is, that would give us some relief there. So that's, and basically out of the 16 million, that's 3 million,
Yeah, we got about a $3 million.
$3 million there.
I think, 3.5.
3.5 there.
That is the, and I think it's 3.5, that is what's listed in the FY, I don't have my list, I think it's FY 2011.
On that priority list,
on
is
the
it
project.
listed that
That
way?
that first number on the, priority listing is for the two-lane phasing.
Okay.
That's the way it's set up. And I think it's 3.5 million, but I can't remember.
It's 3 something.
Yeah.
We got another comment.
Ms. Berger?
Do you have the status updates for where we are with Jackson Lake dredging, phase 3?
Those are water management projects,
Or
right?
the stormwater.
We do have phase 3 on here.
Phase 3's on here, but
Those are not, those are,
yeah, phase
Jackson
3.
Lake's under
We'll get to
item
that.
7.
Oh, yeah, okay, but how about phase 3, McEwen, are we on time for that right now?
Phase
How's
3
that going?
progress is still going well. If you go by there, you'll see retaining wall in place. They've been working on the structures, the bridge structures. So you can see, and a lot of the grading has been completed too. It's going pretty well right now.
What's the finish date on that again?
I believe is it March?
March 12th.
Contract completion date is February 12th,
February.
2012.
Okay.
Excuse me, February 15th.
Oh,
February
it is?
15th.
Okay. And then how about the light at Mount, is that on there? What do you have? Is that?
Mallory
Oh,
Station.
the signal,
Yes.
Mallard, yeah.
And also, I got a question on the Wilson Pike and McEwen. Yeah, but where are we on the signalization at George Patton?
That project's, it's supposed to be complete this month. They've gotten basically all the work other than the poles up. They'll be paving. They were supposed to start paving this week. Unless they started today, it looks like they may be either tomorrow or next week when they start paving. And then they just have to put the poles up. It's all wired and the foundations are poured, so it won't take very long.
It says June.
Yeah, it's this
That's
month.
okay.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, the light in McEwen and Wilson goes up before school starts, but where are we in that phase as far as the bridge?
That's what we're going to
That's on
discuss.
here. We're good.
Okay.
We have 2 items from the group we want to pull out and have a specific discussion on.
Sorry, I
That's
didn't remember.
Hillsborough
That comes
and then the Wilson McEwen. We've got a specific option we want to get your guidance on. So.
Thanks.
Okay.
So Hillsborough?
And then we'll get to
That
Wilson.
comes off.
Okay. A couple things that we wanted to highlight about Hillsborough. A few months ago, we were given the approval from TDOT to start the right-of-way acquisition phase. Was it last week? 2 weeks, few weeks ago, we had the right-of-way meeting, and I guess it was last month, actually. Yeah, a month ago. Had the right-of-way acquisition meeting. Many of the property owners came in. They got to hear what the process was going to be as far as us moving forward with appraisals, the acquisition negotiation process. Shortly after the meeting, then the right-of-way was staked. So if you drive up Hillsborough, you'll see a bunch of stakes that shows the property owners where the right-of-way is going to be, basically where the improvements are going to take place. And
You've got 63 properties overall that you're working with to acquire in this project, and now we're into the appraisal process with that.
Yeah, we're in the appraisal process. One thing that we have directed we did select a couple of appraisers so we could split it up, so we could get the appraisals back in a speedier process. What we've done, we have asked the old BP, that one we've asked for that to be one of the first ones, because I know we've had some discussion. I know the property owner came in last month and wanted to be able to get closure on that. So we should be getting those back probably later, either late this month or sometime in July. Then once we start getting the appraisals back, then we'll start making the formal offers. Overall, this process is going to take about a year, so next summer we should be done with right-of-way. To compare it to Mac Hatcher, we had the Mac Hatcher right-of-way meeting in December of '09, and we're just now getting done with the properties in the past few months. So it took about a year and a half on that project. We expect it'll be about a year. There's no full takes on this, a bunch of slivers of right-of-way and easements. So we expect that it'll be a similar type process, but it may not be as long, just because there's not some of these big properties that we're having to acquire.
I have a question. The Hillsborough Road and that Catcher. Until the road is built, can the trees stay? The oak trees will stay?
You talking about the ones from where we've already demoed the houses?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the ones that are left now?
Yeah.
The trees that are there?
Yes.
Those big oaks and magnolias?
Unless they come down. I mean, the really big one came down from the storm. That was going to stay.
I know that.
Unless something like that happens again, we're not touching anything else over there.
Is that design finished? Is that
Mac
intersection?
Hatcher, yes. Well, it's finished as far as the roadway,
The intersection?
the intersection. We're still working on design of utility relocations, but the roadway itself is complete.
So there's no possibility of a roundabout there?
No.
Not without
To save the
changing.
trees?
If you put a roundabout, you'd probably take more of the trees out. Takes more property to do an appropriate roundabout than it does to do that. Do this.
We'll be getting
intersections
into
there
those
now.
trees because you're starting to go up in grade for the road, and so your fill slopes will be spilling over into some of those trees. It's just because to be able to get over the river and the change in elevation, it'll get into some of those. That's that big one that was back on the back property back by the river. That one was going to be taken just because of how the bridge was. I mean, the bridge was going to be.
Okay, we can't redesign Mac Hatcher. Timeline for Hillsborough Road.
Well, like I said, right-of-way acquisition complete next year, next summer, and then once that's complete, we expect to move into bidding the project and starting construction. Right now, it looks like late next year, and we can start construction.
One
Okay.
thing to keep in mind, this is from 96 West to Joel Cheek Boulevard. Okay, getting those mixed up. That is the section that we have approval on. The Claude Yates Drive intersection spot improvement is a separate contract that we do not have authorization to start right-of-way acquisition yet. That is being held up, was being held up to get the contract straightened out, but right now we're looking at we have to do another environmental study or additional environmental study work, and once we get that done, then the state will give us authorization for right-of-way acquisition.
Good thing about that project, or that portion of it, we've only got, I don't know if we have the number on here, but we've got 63 on the project that we're paying for exclusively. The portion that the state has money in, which is there in front of the high school, there's only like a dozen properties. So that right-of-way acquisition process will take much less time than this. So, you know, we would still like at the end of next summer, or I mean at the end of the right-of-way phase, which would be next summer, we're hoping that by that time we'll have the environmental complete, we'll have that approval from TDOT to start acquisition on the other phase, have that acquisition done, and be able to construct both at the same time. We'll see how that goes, but that's what our hope and intention is. But that's where we are right along.
Mayor?
State again, first section, from 96 West to,
Joel Cheek Boulevard.
and then the second section is Joel Creek.
Joel Cheek to McHatcher.
Okay.
So the southern section is essentially a local project. The northern section is a local and state project. So that's how they've been broken out.
And the project that we intend to commence in a year, roughly.
Essentially have it bid a
But
little over a year from now.
The
and
project
start at
that
the end of the year.
the project that we intend to commence in fall of 2012 will result in a 3-lane curb, gutter, sidewalk, bike trails, drainage, etc., for at least part of Hillsborough Road. And there'll be a 4-lane in front of, there'll be a 4-lane in front of Franklin High for a turn-in.
No, the southern section is a 4-lane with bike lanes on either side, curb and gutter, et cetera, and that 4-lane goes from 96 to about somewhere in
North
the
of
Wendy's.
Okay.
The Wendy's, and then it
But in the residential, I'm talking about in the residential
Residential
section.
will be 3-lane.
Okay, and then the northern end that has not been bid or approved for right-of-way acquisition, the asphalt's already there for, in other words, we're not gonna wind up with a bottleneck.
We will have 3 lanes from Joel Cheek Boulevard to Claude Yates Drive, with the 4th lane, right turn lane in front of the high school. Once you get north of Joel Cheek Drive, it then will transition from a 3-lane up to the 7 lanes as McHatcher is being built.
Okay, good.
And you'll have a signal
Joel
on the
Cheek
north end of the
Boulevard.
high school.
Yeah, Joel Cheek.
No.
No,
You already got it.
Claude Yates Drive.
Claude Yates, you already got
Wrong
Joel
one.
Cheek.
I get those mixed up. Yeah, there's already one at Joel Cheek, and it'll just be
Great.
redone.
And northern also.
Okay,
One item in particular about the acquisition that's been, I guess it's been discussed a little bit. In 2009, there was a resolution that the board approved that that gave staff direction to buy the 3 properties where, what's it called, TriStar, where TriStar was. We've already bought TriStar, but then there's been some other discussions come up, maybe not buying the other 2 properties, and just wanted to let, I guess, kind of bring that back. Staff is moving forward with the full takes on those other 2 properties. If the board wants to change something on that, we'll need to know that fairly soon, as we're in that process right now. But one thing to keep in mind, because we were taking those properties completely, there is some utilities that are going to be located on those properties. So if we were to change, leave those buildings, provide parking through the one property we've already purchased, there would need to be some redesign done. So just wanted to kind of bring that point up, since there had been some discussion about it.
And there was a specific resolution the board passed in 2009 that said, buy these properties, and that's what we've been
And since I
working
was not
towards.
here, could you tell me Which one's that? Don't give me a number.
It's the three properties just to the north of North Margin at Hillsborough Road on the east side. It is
All right,
a check
that's-
cashing, hair,
The beauty
beauty
shop.
shop, the one property we already purchased, and then the property that has the yard art, lawn ornament type stuff out in front of it.
So that's four properties.
No, it's just the one with the beauty shop and the check cashing is one piece of property.
Oh, okay.
Two uses, one.
Two uses, one piece of property, so that.
Well, the truth is, we're gonna take so much of both of those that, in all likelihood, an inverse condemnation claim might not be much cheaper than a full
Yeah,
take.
they lose the parking out front, they're parking in existing right-of-way right now,
All
so.
right, well, have we talked about the
Well,
booking
yes, but
station?
Then that's
That's a
the reason
separate-
it would be the
I
inverse.
know it's
discussion
across
that
the
will come to
street,
you.
but we're gonna talk about that?
Yeah, when we have the appraisals, we'll come back to you
Okay.
with that for
Right.
consideration.
Okay, that's good.
So the inverse condemnation, though, was because we're going to take all their parking. And so are they saying that if they could park on the piece of property that we've already bought, then they would like to stay? You know, I heard that, but I don't know whether that's...
Well, they've indicated they wanted to stay, and they thought that a solution would be to have that for parking, but when we go for the acquisition, we cannot use that as an offset to damages to the property as far as loss of parking, et cetera, even though they're parking on the right-of-way. We found out through experience that we lose, and Dana's been around long enough to know that too, we kind of lose those.
Well, it's an easy I mean, the defense is technical and legal, the complaint is plain. I no longer have a place to park my customers.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's not hard to articulate the problem.
Well, what if they had a contract with the city that they could park on that? I mean, I'm just asking, if they want to stay, if they would want to stay. I don't know, I have no idea.
The Uniform Act for how we have to acquire properties, do relocations, the whole 9 yards, does not allow us to go through that process. We tried it actually when we were doing the intersection at Royal Oaks and 96 with McDonald's and the Herbert property that we had purchased. We could not do it. We could not make it.
The only time in my political career I will ever assist in the destruction of a barbecue joint.
But did we not, in fact, then, did we not, in fact, sell that to them at a very low price?
We ended up, the
Yes,
city
we
ended
did.
up selling a portion of that Herbert's property
That's
to
right.
them, but we could not work out a deal in the meantime, as was going through the right-of-way acquisition process, we could not work out a deal to them where we did a swap of property. They told us we could not do it.
They got from the
They
city
took
and or
advantage, yes.
state a very large amount of money, and then they got the other property very cheaply from us. And so, but that's not this thing here. But as I say, I just wondered if they had, if they were wanting to stay. I just heard that they wanted to stay.
They have talked to me, or the owner has talked to me, and I think the owner talked to Mr. McClendon about that would be their preference.
And others.
And, okay. But, of course,
Well,
we're working on the
The
other.
conversation that I remember having, they wanted the building too, but the building was slated for destruction like less than a week later.
Next week, yeah.
So I don't know. I would ask staff to check with them. I mean, in my mind, the only reason to not go ahead with the resolution that we passed would be if, as an accommodation to the businesses, if they wanted to enter some kind of lease or whatever. I don't know if we can do that, but if they wanted to do that, I would entertain that conversation. I would ask staff at this point to check with them and see if, under the circumstances as they now exist, are they interested? If they're not, then I don't know why we wouldn't go ahead and
Well,
pursue
the one piece north of the property we bought came to our public meeting, and my knowledge, the owner of the piece next to North Margin did not come to that meeting, but we will be discussing and negotiating with them.
Okay, well, just
during
let
the
them, I mean,
process.
I'm willing
There's a
to,
proposal.
if they want to do that, I'm willing to listen. I don't insist that we condemn the entire properties. If they have got, a way that we can work with them, that's fine. But
Right.
Otherwise, I mean, all of the reasons that existed to suggest that we should do a complete taking still exist.
Correct.
So is that 2 owners or 3?
There's 2 owners.
Because we've already.
The combined business, okay.
But look at it carefully, because if we start buying property, then we start leasing it out of the parking lot. I mean, I can't see just tomorrow what the problem is, but I could see that could be an issue at some point in time.
Since I'm up here, can I ask about, the other thing is, the bullet point right below that
Yeah,
talks
fixing to bring
about,
that
and I just want to say, you know, I talked at one point about how much the brick screening walls would cost, but what I'm seeing here is the brick screening walls are going to cost a lot more than the cost of constructing the brick screening
Correct.
wall, because right here is going to be a place, if you remember how we had a problem with the corners, you know, on Columbia, this is going to be another situation. And if we have to go further, spend more money to indemnify these people, that's going to be quite expensive.
Well,
So I just want to.
this particular bullet is put in here. We are in discussions with that particular property owner. That's where the old donut place was. It's the corner of Ridge Street and Hillsborough Road on Fifth Avenue. The Peep Bubblegum Building, yes. By putting up the screening wall, it makes the need to route traffic on their property one way. They're objecting to that. It makes us have to change parking to an angled parking versus a 90-degree parking. And we're looking at eliminating the majority of the brick wall to allow for the parking up next to the building to stay as it is, two-way traffic, et cetera. We have not got this worked out. We're going to be working with our appraiser to have him look at how it affects everything as far as leaving the brick wall. If we do not do the brick wall, and can keep the parking. So that's something we're going to be working on. We're not ready to bring back to you any recommendation at this point concerning how we go forward with that. But should we decide that we're going to eliminate the major portion of that brick wall, we will be coming back to the Board of Mayor and Alderman with a recommendation to do that, since the plan has already been approved with the brick walls. So we will do that, but we've got to get that worked out first to see how it affects us and see if we still want to go forward with what we staff think we're going to need to do. But this property owner was at the meeting. He spent a long time with me discussing this particular issue, and we're working on trying to solve it to where it's the
Well,
best.
that's not what you need.
Yeah, we look at functional as well as making that intersection still look attractive. So it works, but it also, the pieces still fit together at that intersection. That would be our goal.
We would still have a portion of the brick wall, the rounded part at the intersection, like what's going to be on the other corners, would still be able to be in there. But the wall along Fifth Avenue would not be, probably. So we'll bring it back to you when we get to that point. But we did want to bring that up where you understand that we're in design alterations on some of this for the right-of-way purposes.
Well, let's don't let landscaping and potted plants jam up traffic improvements. Okay? I mean, refrain from beating that horse any further.
Trying to strike the right balance.
Trying to strike the right tone.
Yes, gotcha.
The last thing that we had really on Hillsborough was just the fact that with right-of-way process, we expect that there will be some properties that we won't be able to come to an agreement with. So if we have to go to condemnation, maybe a few. But we'll come back to the board in a few months just to go ahead and get that resolution for condemnation approved by the board, so that if we have any as we're going through it.
Same thing we did with Mac Hatcher, gets us ready to go.
And basically what we don't want to do is have a resolution for condemnation before we ever even make an offer for the property. So we will wait to the point of at least we've made offers.
Let's learn from our.
All right, what else you got?
I guess that's it on Hillsborough, unless y'all have anything. and then Wilson Pike and McEwen. Yeah, Wilson Pike and McEwen, that intersection project. A couple months ago, we came before the committee, did a little presentation, showed some options for that intersection. At that time, I guess what came out of it was you guys didn't want to do anything as far as making a recommendation or approving an option until the CIP process was completed. What we've got in the agreement with the county, we're obligated to spend that money by October 2012. Is that right, 2012? Yeah. And committed, not spent. The schedule that we got with our design would start taking bids about a year from now, maybe May, June of next year, which gives us a few months play. But we'd also had that the design would be submitted, preliminary design would have been submitted in April. Well, in order for them to have submitted the design in April, we needed the option approved on what type of bridge and how we were going to do the intersection. At this point, you know, the few months leeway that we had before is starting to get less and less. We do need a decision fairly soon. What's in the CIP? We took the options that were presented a couple months ago. We made a hybrid option out of those options that were presented. What we did, the staff recommended option before was an option that realigned Wilson Pike where it ultimately will be. It got it away from CSX Railroad far enough where it really made that intersection work better. You could be completely off the bridge as you get into that intersection, whereas now I don't even think a car can be at that intersection without still being on the bridge. But what we looked at doing was really trying to stay closer to the $2 million that the board looked at funding, using the $1 million from the schools and $1 million from the city, and a bridge that would last for many years. And what I mean by many years is if growth continued the way it is, the bridge that would be in place would be there for 15, 20 years before you'd really need to start looking at more laneage, that type of thing. So what we ended up coming up with and what we've put in the CIP process or the CIP book was a cost of $2,240,000. That bridge, as I said, it's a 15 to 20 year life, unless growth changes. If it speeds up, obviously, you know, traffic increases, maybe something needs to be done. But that type of bridge would be there for a very long time, and it stays relatively close to the option or the $2 million that was budgeted before.
So basically what we're looking at is we're going to need an additional $240,000 for this project. The facilities tax that the city receives and has in the special account, and that was from the increase by the county, since the time we've discussed this as far as funding it through that facilities tax, that's where the city's funding is coming from, is $1 million from there, has gained $383,000 plus. So we have enough money in that particular account to cover the additional $240,000, and that's what we're trying to go on and get a decision that we want to go on and authorize the funding of this project at $2,240,000 using these funds that has the funding account that's already been allocated, but adding $240,000 more dollars out of that account for this particular project, where we can go on and get the design done and we don't slow the project down, because we've got to have the funds committed by October 2012.
So as we look at our CIP, that is something that we need to be given.
Actually, what we're looking at there, I think, is if we can go on with an approval from this committee through the board,
okay,
get that resolution done that will go on and add the $240,000 where we can go forward. And again, that's out of that special funding that has not been anticipated to be used in any of the CIP projects other than this one. So
Well,
that's the
why-
reason we thought we needed to do that.
Why, if we have the money, we have the money from the city and the money from the school board and the 240,000, if we have the money, what is stopping us from proceeding with this right away?
The money has to be authorized by the board for us.
We're coming to you to update it to authorize the additional money. We've got the funding source identified for you, so we can go ahead and keep this project
Do we
moving.
need a motion right this minute to do something?
No. I think we're gonna recommend that we just move this on. I mean, it's not on agenda, but it
If
should
you
be
give
on-
us that direction, we'll move it forward to the full board.
Skip the workshop.
So
We'll
if you'd
come
like
to-
us to bring it to the work session, we can, or we can put it on.
We can have a resolution to the full board about on the 28th, is that the
28th.
date?
Ma'am, you don't
28th
want to do
meeting.
that?
No, she doesn't want to go to
She wants to put
workshop.
it on
That
the-
slows it up.
We're all here.
Just go to
Yeah,
the board.
everyone's
I don't
here.
know why
Is
we
there
have
anybody
to,
that objects to going to the
I don't
workshop?
know why we can't just go on and
The
make the
money's there.
motion to approve it or to recommend it.
It needs to go to the whole board. That's what we're asking you to do.
Because it's a
$250,000
$250,000 and it's on as a status report, not as an action item.
Yeah.
And you don't, in your enthusiasm for the project, you don't want to create a parliamentary snafu.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
Okay.
committee can't approve anything. It is a
We can
mechanism of the
recommend
full
it.
board.
We can recommend it.
Recommend it to the
That's
full
something
board.
that's what we're putting before you.
What?
Recommend it to the full board. It doesn't need to go to the
Well,
workshop, what you're asking.
Are you saying we can't do that, Dana?
No, I'm saying that the item is on as a status report. If the staff interprets the comments that are being made correctly, then what you're asking for will probably happen.
Right.
Well, that's what I'm
Put
asking.
it on the
for.
20th.
For
That's what I'm asking for.
For you to understand what we're going to do, we're going to write the resolution. We will have it on the board 28th meeting as a new business item for you to discuss if need be and vote on.
Thank you.
There you go. Okay,
Thanks. We got time to-
yep, government is fun.
We can get it done.
Are we ready to go to water management projects?
Unless y'all have any other questions about streets. If not,
Questions?
we didn't single out any projects on water.
Reservoir holder.
They're all
I'm not
starting
going to
to,
sit here and wait for someone to dream one up.
they're all starting to
Stormwater
wrap up.
projects.
Wait.
We're wrapping up a lot in water.
No, I want to ask just one question, and it won't be long. Downs Boulevard, we've been over there for eons.
Correct.
When will that be through, and when can we smooth that road out?
When can we smooth that road out? I'm pulling the contract deadline up right now as we speak. Construction completion, Trish, do we have the latest update on that one?
Get it to me sometime. Go to stormwater.
Right now, what's approved is around yesterday. We have a change order that is coming forward that we did not have
You will see
submitted
on Tuesday.
in time to get on this committee. It is on your work session Tuesday night. That will have a different time frame should you approve it. But they did submit and talk to the city staff about a change order prior to the date running out, so.
Have the ribbon remnants been removed yet?
They have not been removed yet.
Do we have a place that they can go where they will never appear again?
We have a landfill that's identified. The transportation of it is going to be done either by the city or the contractor, depending on what the costs are when they come back with it. The hangup right now is that TDEC Solid Waste needs to give us written approval in order to put it into a landfill. There's no additional testing that needs to happen, but we're essentially waiting for that process to...
When you uncover debris like this in a project, you got to go through a process to essentially dispose of it, and that's what we're trying to go through with TDEC. So that's added a little complication to this project.
Looks like a gift wrap place over there, doesn't it?
Looks like Santa's sleigh.
Somebody used to work over there, didn't they?
Yeah, that's right.
Somebody worked there for a long time.
Memories.
Stormwater?
Talk about Jackson Lake. You had a question about that?
Jackson Lake is under construction. They're in the process of cutting the road to cross the creek right now. they'll be installing the culvert so that they can go across and install the pumping system and everything. And really, we don't expect them to start dredging for at least another month, which should be good because water will still continue to be going down a little bit, so.
And that's completion by the fall, right?
Yes, yeah, October. We've talked about Liberty Creek already.
I got a question on that.
Okay.
I think we talked about this, but I got one question still about that driveway that was put in. So they can take over all the sludge, they're gonna dump it in that one area and then haul it out. There's a gentleman that called me up and he wanted to know, he said that driveway that they put in, he thinks the church is putting in a driveway as well. And I said, not that I knew, but he said there's a driveway being put in right there by his property. And he wants to know if that driveway is permanent.
There should not be.
That's the path for the hauling of the sludge, isn't it?
That's what I
It's
thought.
one in the
There's,
same.
I mean, we've only got one that goes from the church
There's
parking
only one
lot.
place.
Where's his property? Where's his property?
He's south of it.
Right there on the road.
Right there, next to the culvert that goes into Jackson Lake. There's a possibility there has to be some driveway for the construction crews to get from the lake itself to the church property. I'm not sure if
It's all
they're
the
doing any of
roadway.
that.
It's all the roadway.
Okay.
Any
It's
of
the
that
church
stuff
address.
that's happening is gonna go away, all that driveway.
Unless the church is in on
Are
the
they-
planning
are they
commission
doing anything?
or anything.
No,
I
it's
was
just for
under the
the-
impression there was nothing going on over there with the
that's just to
driveway.
handle that, to haul the sludge.
That's what I thought, but
They're not having to do something
pretty
between the
permanent.
houses to get over to the
Well,
lake?
they'll go for the culvert.
Oh, okay.
They'll run their pipes.
Okay, anything else? Thank you for coming.
all right,